this is going to be an awesome panel. Obviously, a lot of hard work you guys did putting this ACC network together. So let's go down the row. Say the name, the purpose that you guys have on the network, and how it's been so far. A little primer of what you guys are doing. I guess set the table. What is the ACC Network? What's in Bristol? And we'll start from there. So Meg, you go first.
Sure, absolutely. These chairs are very comfortable, by the way, in case
They
you're
are.
wondering. I'm Meg Aronowitz. I'm a coordinating producer at ESPN, and I oversee what we call the school project. So the partnership with the 15 schools in the ACC that produce a lot of our linear content and support the network overall on campuses in their production facilities. So working with the schools 18 months leading up to the launch of the project, and then ultimately every day since then has been a true pleasure, and they are thrilled and tired. I look at Ken Cleary up here in the front row. He's a little tired from North Carolina, but they've been doing a great job, so it's been a terrific opportunity.
I'm Aaron Katzman. I'm overseeing all of the studio shows for ACC Network. I came on board in February, something like that, and just trying to get our morning Packer and Durham show plus our evening content up and running. It's been a great test and a great adventure, and being able to work with Amy and Meg has been the best part of it.
I'll pay you for that later.
Yeah.
Amy.
So first and foremost, it's always a challenge when the three of us do a panel, because when they announce that Aronowitz, Katzman, and Rosenfeld are coming up, I feel like everyone comes to me to settle their divorces, so it's hard.
You do that on the side, right?
No, I know. So that's already a challenge. Hey, look, we don't get to launch a network every day, and I think we all feel really privileged to be able to do it. This one is really unique because it is a true partnership with the 15 schools. We are incredibly reliant on their setups, their control rooms. They provide content, so we're really meshed with them. So not only are we, launching a network out of ESPN, it was incumbent on all of us to ensure that the schools were ready. And so we really had 15 locations that had to be on board, and that they have been. It's been incredible.
Sure, let's take this chronologically. We'll start 4+ months in the past, before this thing launched on August 22nd, 2019. This wasn't the first time you guys worked with a network to try to, a conference to establish a network. You guys did stuff with the ACC Network back in 2013, 14, 15, what have you. What did you think the network, ESPN, learned from the process that you guys had with the SEC and trying to, establish that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Obviously, this is the second time that we've launched a conference network of this level and magnitude. I think when we launched the SEC network, and a lot of us that worked on the ACC network worked on the SEC, obviously myself, Rex Arns, in our operations side and planning. We didn't necessarily know what we didn't know when we launched the SEC network. It was the first time that we had created a spoken hub model with fiber infrastructure, going back to production facilities on campuses, and then ultimately back to our Charlotte offices. So having that opportunity and the knowledge of what we did in the SEC certainly helped us navigate the launch of the ACC. The lead up to the ACC started much longer out. There was a much longer runway, although Amy was hyperventilating into a paper bag the day of the launch because she felt like the runway had just stopped short. But so we had more time to work with the schools and to work with them. And frankly, technology had evolved so much in 5 years. When we launched the SEC network, a lot of the integrators and consultants that were working with the schools in the SEC were working on video board projects and not necessarily live broadcast production facilities. So the evolution of those and bringing on more entities that got into the control room, quote unquote, business, the NEPs of the world, the BECs of the world, it was really helpful. So there was definitely a longer runway and lots of lessons to be learned from the SEC. But the great thing about the ACC is that most of the schools had actually already been producing content on ESPN3. So we weren't reinventing the wheel. We were just enhancing the opportunities on campus for them. And a lot of them are really, really talented and didn't need much enhancement.
Sure. Aaron and Amy, what did you guys learn on the studio side creatively from this launch back in a couple years ago?
I learned a lot more about interior design than I expected to, carpet structures and things like that. But no, honestly, I think one of the challenges, it's always the unexpected challenges that you learn. And I remember sitting in our empty studio that had just been gutted, and we were trying to visualize what the new studio was going to be like in Bristol. And we had our spot for the desk that was taped out, and a spot for our interview second set that was taped out. And here's the cameras, here's the jib. It's like, okay, so how long is it going to take to get from the main desk to the interview set? You know, we have a 3-minute commercial break, and people we were with were like, well, it'll take about 7 or 8 minutes to get the robotic cameras over to the other set, which, as anybody in TV knows, 8 minutes is not going to work. So we kind of stumbled into a great technological advancement, which are these robotic PTZ cameras that we installed into the scenery of our studio. So if you're watching the show, you just think it's a table, and all of a sudden it opens up and up pops a camera, and that's what we've been using to shoot our interview set, which was kind of a fun thing to fall into.
I think with the new network, you get, at least at ESPN, you get a lot of room to experiment, and we've taken some risks. Many of them have not panned out, so like each day is sort of a new chance to kind of show off the new talent, show off some of the toys, but I think it runs the risk that we tend to experiment a little too much, and now what we've tried to do is pull back a little, not have every single show have some new wrinkle. And I think that's been the biggest lesson for me, is just not everything every day has to be new. Sometimes it's good to just get in a groove. Like you mentioned the Packer-Durham morning show. That's starting to get into a groove where I think it's a comfortable watch now.
Sure. Before we go back in the studio, Meg, we spoke about this earlier, 15 different institutions. No matter if it's Pitt, if it's Valtech, or it's UNC or Duke, they're going to have their own unique cases. How did you work with those needs and kind of balance the relationship between the network side and all those schools?
Well, I think building the relationships is key, right? So that's what we talked about, was taking that 18 months to develop the personal relationships and to figure out what each school was going to be able to do from a production standpoint and from a technology standpoint based on the budget that they were allocated. So you're right, it's not all things are created equal. So every school in the ACC is very different in many ways. But the thing that they have in common is they all have the same requirements and expectations, and they all have terrific leadership. So for us, it was about just as much about building partnerships and relationships as it was about the actual technology that was being installed into their production facilities and how we were going to execute those event productions. And I think also taking the time to build up our staff on the ESPN ACC side early enough so that it wasn't just, a month out before the launch, we were introducing them to a whole new set of individuals that would be working with them every day. So we pride ourselves, and Amy gets credit for really pushing to activate our headcount earlier, much earlier than the network launched in some instances, to help develop those relationships with the schools so that when we turned the light on, there were no surprises and you were comfortable with the people that you were dealing with.
Sure, you said it most.
Hey, I want to just tag team on one thing Meg said. I have to tell you, if you can get to these 15 schools on the ACC and see these facilities, I really want to give a shout out to these schools. Let me tell you, video board production is now like the chariot scene of Ben-Hur. I mean, it is. Do you know that movie? That was a long time ago.
I know that one.
Nice, yeah.
I know.
I'm going to Google it. I'll look it up later.
Material, because it's. But all kidding aside, these guys aren't just doing ESPN productions. They're doing video boards, and by the way, not just at football and basketball. Now, soccer, swimming. They all have video boards that are really complicated and frankly drive a lot of revenue. They're doing coaches shows. They're doing recruiting videos. The president of the school needs to say something. He or she goes to their studio. So I just have to tell you that they have far surpassed many control rooms at ESPN. I mean, it's really significant what these schools have built out.
Sure. Back to the control room, the studio back in Bristol. You and Aaron can kind of talk about that. We have photos for visual purposes, but when I saw that desk open, you mentioned it earlier, the Grass Valleys and the PTZs, John was on the floor. That was pretty cool. It surprised me. So go a little bit deeper into the tech that you guys have and kind of the aesthetic that you're trying to establish with that setup.
No, I'm out of material, man.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was honestly, it was something we totally stumbled into because of a design inefficiency that with the robotic cameras, we only have one camera operator in the whole studio that's operating our jib camera. So just to be able to get the other 3 robotic cameras from where you see the photo right now to the other side of the studio just was going to be a daunting task with that big desk in the middle. So we talked about a million different scenarios, and when the PTZ cameras were kind of thrown out as an option, I certainly know I didn't, and I'm not sure Amy even had any idea what that meant, much less how we could execute it seamlessly in the studio. I legit thought it was going to be like right underneath the ACCN sign in that photo and was going to like pop out of the wall. And then all of a sudden we go in the studio and there are these tables that I just was ready to put a drink onto, and the thing opens
thing
up.
you didn't.
Well, we've only had like 2 issues with drinks getting spilled. I don't know if you've gotten the bill for that yet.
No, but I will say sitting on it and when they raise it that's probably for the
It's a little bit
after
jarring.
hours video. But yeah, no, that was something.
But overall, it flows seamlessly into the design of the studio, and it really enhances what we can do in the studio because now we can go in segment and a commercial break. We're able to really take advantage of this brand new, unique looking set.
Sure. I think we have other pictures as well that show, a lot of the.
I mean, I think the worst thing that has ever happened to producers and directors, monitors. There's like so many monitors in this thing, and then all of a sudden, and it looked cool when they were all, dark, and then we were like, what are we putting in all of these monitors? So that's also been tricky because my mentor, Jeff Mason, Hall of Famer Jeff Mason, I would bounce stuff off of him, and he would always say, too busy, and I'm thinking, he's right, it's too busy. So you're trying to balance, like, using these monitors for storytelling and some wallpaper, but that's been, I think, a big lesson, is just, there is such a thing as too many monitors.
While we're speaking of the PTZ cameras that's staring at me right now, transitioning to our Packer and Durham morning show, which is in Mark Packer's basement in his house in Charlotte. We spent all this time on our Bristol studio, and then it was, how are we going to design a studio in someone's basement that is being produced? There are 4 PTZ cameras in this studio. There are 15 DMX controlled lighting fixtures. All the cameras are being fed back to Bristol. The show is being produced, directed, cut, all the fibers going back to Bristol, and you've got the 2 hosts that are on set. How is this going to work, and how are we going to create this set? Poor Mark Packer's wife has had to deal with endless production trucks in her driveway, and Porta-Johns, and you name it, they've been in their driveway. But our final product has been something that I think is one of the underrated accomplishments that ACC Network has had from launch, which is the first time ever that a home studio, multiple camera setup has been installed in someone's house.
Yeah, we had to think about things like, okay, they're in Charlotte. Okay, we're an hour and a half away from hurricane season. Maybe we should think about a generator. Okay, we're going to do a generator, but what's going on the generator? Are we putting the whole house on the generator? Are we just doing this? They need a refrigerator. We need his wife to be happy at all times. So there was like a lot of balancing. And the first few weeks, the fiber, we had some challenges getting the fiber installed. So now we have this gigantic satellite truck parked in their driveway. So now what are you doing for the neighbors? Are you doing a barbecue for the neighbors? Are you giving them ESPN shirts? Like, there was a lot of schmoozing.
The answer was barbecue and shirts.
We did all. I guarantee you there was beer involved.
You guys did forget the best part of the show, though.
The dogs.
Yeah, the dogs. So that's another
that.
thing. It's like, okay, the dogs are going to be here. He's got these 2 dogs that never leave his side. Okay, how are we framing them? Which ottoman do they like to go? I mean, I've had a long career, but there were many boxes I can now check that dog cam and framing and what's their path and can we follow them, and where that was a first in my career.
Ken, I can't see you, but can I work remotely like this from now on? Do you care? Because I think I'm going to have to. I have these guys on my side, so they're just going to have to build the office like that for me.
The only negative is the way the table was. Both Mark and Wes have to wear pants. Yeah. They were hoping they could wear shorts, but that was the only stipulation.
I think that the audience is thanking us for that. Yeah. That's a win.
They do talk about that a lot.
Pants are a win.
Back to the schools and the relationship with the network, with the ACC Network. Meg, how are they collaborating? I know you guys have a lot of partnerships with NEP Media Bank. Yep. You guys are also trying to use a lot of this tech to move forward with innovation. I know you may have an announcement about Ross. How are you guys collaborating?
You're taking my thunder.
Teasing you, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, technology is something that has always been a priority for the ACC Network from its inception. We really wanted to be tech forward, and one of the things that Rex Arns and I had been trying to work on for years, even before the ACC Network, is figuring out the best way for us to share assets and content seamlessly in a cloud, because it's challenging, as you can imagine, with ESPN and our security and giving access to outside entities into the ESPN library system. So trying to find ways to share content and assets with the individual schools, and also find a way to have them share with each other and take ESPN out of the middle of the equation, was a goal of ours. And we have partnered with NEP Media Bank on that cloud server system. Then we are just scratching the surface, working with the Media Bank team. Michael Sullivan, who is he's an event director for us, but by day, and he's our lead tech expert by night, has been working with the team at Media Bank, which I know they're in here making sure I say nice things about them somewhere, to work on things like automation with Evert's Dreamcatcher for melts and timecode and metadata integration, thing with EVS and so on and so forth. So the cloud server has been a game changer for us working with Media Bank. Again, we're just scratching the surface. We are going to get to the point where we share all content with the 15 schools in the ACC and the 14 in the SEC through Media Bank, including graphics and XMLs and Viz and Expression and ROS files and music. And it'll be one-stop shopping for them, and it'll be automated to the point where they'll just be able to select what they want, and it will transcode in the cloud, and then they will be able to push it to whatever their replay server or their system is. I see you waving your mic.
I was just going to say, it's not just a benefit for the schools, it's also for us.
Yes.
From the studio side, we've been fortunate that with this cloud server, schools have been able to upload their own pieces that they've produced, and from a studio perspective, we've been able to take them and air them in our nightly shows to give ourselves some content, to give some credit to the school production groups that are doing a fantastic job putting those things together. So it's a win for 15 schools plus us.
And the conference. I mean, obviously Scott McBurney and the team of the conference are using it. And I look forward to having this conversation again next year when I can tell you we're doing 8 million other cool things with it. But you are also right in the sense that I guess I can say this now because everybody has signed the contract. But we did just sign a contract with Ross to bring the Ross Piero 3D telestration system to the ACC Network. So we will be providing a Ross Piero system to all 15 schools over time. I don't want Ken to get hives sitting in the front row again. But we will be rolling that out slowly through the course of this year. You'll see it after the new year on some conference basketball, and then we'll slowly, school by school, integrate the systems into their facilities. And our agreement with Ross is to have licenses on all of the sports that we are covering on the ACC Network. And that's going to help us with real-time live telestration. It's going to help us with post-production telestration on sports and things that you've not seen. So we'll be able to do all kinds of things on lacrosse and baseball and softball. And it'll really be a difference maker in terms of giving the analysts the opportunity to break down the game in a very quick, timely way. And it's going to help the studio front as well. So we're excited to partner with Ross on that. And, you'll be able to see that soon on a television screen near you.
Sure, real quick before you go. Amy, I want to start with you on this last question. With a lot of this momentum, this collateral, these partnerships, a lot of things going on for the network heading into 2020, when this baby hits 1 year old in August, where will we stand in a year or by August? And also moving forward, you guys are a vehicle for the college market and the college students to ultimately get jobs in the future, right? So how will this ACC network be a vehicle for creating opportunities for them?
Okay, so when it hits a year, I think we'll look back and say, wow, why did we do X, Y, and Z? And oh boy, A, B, and C were pretty good. So let's expand on that. I think technology, a year from now, or the 1-year anniversary, I think we'll be really hitting the ground running on a lot of technology. Tagging on what Meg said, we have expanded our soccer goalpost cams to the ACC. We started with 5 schools. We'll bring on 3 more. We've used MediaPro's OmniCam on football, and we just used it on a men's basketball game for the first time. That company's done that in the United States. So I think that the tech stuff, I think we'll have our legs under us to really now kind of, move forward with some new experimentation in that area. And then as far as it really is a two-way street. Like, I think about when I went to college in the late 1920s, I worked at a newspaper doing the agate page, right? There was no communicate. There was no television station. There was barely a radio station. There was barely power. I look at this now with these schools. These kids come out of these programs ready to hit the ground running as PAs or in technical positions. It's really amazing. There's been a great track record of these kids getting hired at our network, at the other networks. So absolutely, last thing I'll say on this, you go to Notre Dame, and on replay will be a physics major, a religion major, and a history major. And this is like doing a video game for them. So they're doing replays on an ESPN event. So that's pretty cool.
And will you still be standing when we hit the 1-year anniversary?
Now, I'm barely standing now, although I will say that for those of us who are height challenged, these chairs work out very well. Thank you for no bar stools.
I can't believe it's only been 3 months. But going back to the jobs part of it, we have 7 production assistants right now on the studio side, and 4 of them started within the last year, and they're from ACC schools, Clemson, Syracuse, Virginia. So that is a real success story and a lot of fun to watch these students come in and have a true passion for and pride in the network.
Meg, take us home.
I just, once we get that last major affiliate deal signed, I think people are going to really get to see the firepower what this network has. I would just say that we are extremely proud of the partnership between the conference and the schools and ESPN. It truly is a collaboration. They work so hard on those campuses. Amy alluded to it with all the other things that they have on their plate, but they take great pride in the network and the product that we put on the air, and I think it's only going to help the ACC and the sports within the ACC grow with exposure, and that's going to make the product better for all of us. So we're thrilled and couldn't be more grateful for the partnership with all of our partners, Ross, MediaBank, the ACC. So it's going to be a great year.
25 minutes, a little bit over. Not that bad, guys. Round of applause for these 3. Thanks, guys.